I'm Dennis Reardon, president of Monontotuck Audubon Society, and welcome to this evening's community program. Monontotuck wishes to honor the indigenous communities native to the chapter area, including the Pagussit, Wepawag, Quinnipiac, Tutucket, Monontotuck, and Hammonasset people. As we advocate for conservation of the land and its wildlife, we're indebted to the work of Native and indigenous people who cherished the land for thousands of years before European colonization. And before we get started with Craig's program, I wanted to draw your attention to a few of the programs that we have coming up that were in the opening slideshow. On Saturday, October 8th, we're going to have please mute yourself. We're going to have a canoe trip on the West River in New Haven from 10 o'clock to 12:30. On Tuesday, October 11th, the next community program will be about bird and window collisions. That's 7 o'clock. That'll be on Zoom. And the following Saturday, we have All Things Pollinator Festival at the Urbanscapes Native Plant Nursery. That's October 15th from 10 to 1. You can find out more information and register for the canoe trip and the Zoom program on our website. So happy to welcome Craig Repasz to our program tonight. He's serving his second term as COA Conservation Committee Chair. He's been president of the New Haven Bird Club and is currently their outdoor program chair. And he's also president of the Friends of Stuart B. McKinney National Wildlife Refuge, an organization devoted to supporting the refuge. Welcome, Craig. Thanks for doing this.
Great. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for inviting me to speak to Monontotuck Audubon. I've always felt that your organization is one of the powerhouses in the state as far as conservation goes, and it's a privilege to be here. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, does everybody see this?
That's good.
Okay, great. All right. When was the last time you were in the dark? I mean, total dark. When was the last time you just stood outside at night and looked up? Go ahead and do that tonight. What do you see? Overcast? Are you seeing stars? What is the brightest star in the sky? Obviously, this is autumn. Our summer constellations like Scorpio and Sagittarius are about to disappear over our early night sky, giving way to Taurus and Orion. Meanwhile, Cygnus dominates the zenith. What is the phase of the moon? I cheated and I used an iPhone app. So it tells me it's a waxing crescent. A few days ago, it was a new moon. Humans have a way of going nights, weeks, and months, and even years without noticing the night sky. Our birds don't have this luxury. Ornithologists continue to try to understand how birds navigate during migration. Most migrate at night. Birds will use barometric pressure, magnetic fields, and of course the stars. They evolved millions of years ago to navigate at night in a dark world. I'm sure we've all seen this. Doppler radar can pick up birds in flocks as they leave resting grounds during migration. What happens here is they will take off, they'll fly to a certain elevation, and then the radar picks them up. So they first appear as dots and then an expanding cloud. This way we could track the migration. Also, with some more advanced technology, we could actually predict how many birds are going to be flying over us on like during our autumn migration and with the spring migration. I highly recommend this website. This is Birdcast that is sponsored by Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So these birds, once they're up, they follow ancient routes, navigating by stars in the Earth's magnetic fields. We as humans can experience the migration as the birds eclipse the moon. Sometimes we hear them overhead as single birds, small groups, or larger flocks. We have built our cities and civilizations under their routes. So nighttime migration has collided with human artificial daylight. Talk about humans. We evolved in the daylight, in the dark caves where the saber-toothed tiger and cave bears. And in the darkness of our childhood bedrooms lived the under the bed monster. Together with a monster in the closet, they would terrorize us. They always disappeared when the lights were turned on. We believe that we need light. Humans have always tried to light the night with fire and torches. Since 1807, when gas street lamps were introduced, man has continued to try to further push back the night. As time moved on, we would develop incandescent lighting and later the bright halogens. The birds have paid a price. There is no clear scientific evidence that increased outdoor lighting deters crime. It may make us feel safe, but it has been shown to make us safer. A 2015 study published in the Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health found that streetlights don't prevent accidents or crime, but do cost a lot of money. The researchers looked at data on road traffic collisions and crime in 62 local authorities in England and Wales and found that lighting had no effect, whether authorities had turned them off completely, dimmed them, turn them off at certain hours, or substitute low-power LED lamps. In fact, most property crimes occur in the light of the day, and some crimes like vandalism and graffiti actually thrive on night lighting. A dark sky does not necessarily mean a dark ground. Smart lighting that directs light where it is needed creates a balance between safety and starlight. So there's technology out there that would help us direct light downwards as opposed to having an entire orb around our lights going up into the sky. I'm sure we've all seen this horrendous map. This is what our night looks like in the United States. This is primarily coming from buildings and coming from highway lights. You could see the way our megalopolis spreads from Washington, D.C. through Philadelphia and New York. I'm sure people who live along the coast can look out and see a glow over Long Island. Here in Connecticut, it's not much better. You could see the outline of 95 and 91 as it extends up into Massachusetts. Birds have to fly over this. We use light to sell our products and to shine on our accomplishments. How many people listening have actually seen the Milky Way? Most of us live in the glowing orb around our cities and along our megalopolis. So we pretty much experience night the way we see here in panel 9 and 7. Some of us are fortunate enough to see suburban sky panel 5. I grew up in northern Vermont, so panels 3 and 1 was common to me. We are only able to see just a few stars on a clear night. Some stars are so far away, the light we are seeing now left that star when dinosaurs roamed our planet. So the complete poem of the universe is being robbed from us because of light pollution. In addition to impacting birds, it also impacts human health, causing stress and insomnia. Also, one thing too, when you look at the stars, a lot of physicists have traced the origins of our planet, and we are actually stardust. So this is a way of looking at home. It is estimated that annually 4 billion birds move south into the contiguous United States every autumn. At the same time, 4.7 billion birds leave the United States for southern winter grounds in the tropics. The reverse trip is reported in diminished numbers in the spring, with 3.5 billion crossing back into the United States and 2.6 billion returning to Canada across the border. The diminished numbers are due to deaths on the wintering grounds, as well as succumbing to perils along the migration. The return back to Canada is 64% and the return home to the United States is 76, according to researchers at Cornell University. So think of air as habitat. Between the tree and mountaintops to the stratosphere, there is a layer cake of air currents, bands of cold and warm air, jet streams, head and tail winds that are only important to birds and weather geeks. These layers can both help and hinder migrating birds by giving them tailwinds and updrafts, or they could kill birds with strong winds, storms, and microbursts. To point out even further, our migrating birds need airspace, starting at 200 feet for waterfowl, 500 feet for songbirds, and 700 feet for raptors. These elevations are for birds cruising along. They're not going to hit windows at these elevations. The risk of collisions comes as they land and take off day after day during migration. So to increase these perils, man has reached upward into these layers, not only with our structures, but with spiking light beams from towers, airports, and monuments that emanate out of the sky glow like that halos our sprawling megalopolis. At this point, I'd like to show a video that kind of explains how this works.
Artificial light at night is a major problem for birds, and it's especially a problem during migration. So migration happens in the Northern Hemisphere twice a year in the fall and in the spring. There are hundreds of millions of birds flying over New York City at night, and they're using the stars to navigate. They're using the moon to help them see things. They're using the Earth's magnetic field. They're hopping on the right winds, tailwinds, to carry them in the right direction. And then they're flying along, and let's say they fly past New York City, and all of a sudden there's this big light, and birds are attracted to light. Birds do go fly to the light. And then we've seen in these very strong beams of light, like the accelerometer used in an airport or a Tribute in Light memorial that we have here every year in New York City, birds will fly to that light beam, and then they'll wind up flying around and around and around. They can't get out of it. We say they get caught in the light. Sometimes they get out on their own. Sometimes we need to extinguish the light if we can. And the problem with the light itself doesn't kill the birds. What the light does is it changes the bird's behavior. If you're changing behavior during migration, it's something the bird hadn't planned on. So it needed a little extra energy to carry it past that point. These are birds that are flying thousands and thousands of miles, sometimes without stopping, to get from one point to another. And they only have a certain amount of time to do it because their life, their offspring depend on it. And they don't have that extra energy that they carry to make a detour. And the energy that birds use is, for the most part, in the form of fat. But if you think about a person who's going on an airplane trip, you want to pack the most amount of stuff that you need in the smallest suitcase, so you don't have to carry as much. Well, it's the same thing with the birds. They want to pack on as much fat as they can without being so heavy that it costs them more to fly. So having a detour like this can have a dramatic effect on the bird's survival. What we see is birds landing in places where they didn't plan to land because they get confused and tired, exhausted. And then the next day, when the light comes up, the natural light, the birds will continue on their flight or go to sit in a tree and look for food. And what they'll do, especially in a city, is fly into glass. So either transparent or highly reflective glass. The bird thinks it's flying into a tree, but it's flying into the reflection of the tree or the sky. It's really flying into the reflection of the sky. And it's flying at a good clip. We find dead birds on the streets during migration. And these birds are in great condition, except that they have broken skulls.
You'll still see it because you don't have it.
Okay, Mark.
About 1 billion birds die every year in the United States just from collision.
That's depressing. Just one building can cause major problems for birds in the area. Within 1 week in 2017, nearly 400 passerines were caught in the floodlights of a 32-story Texas skyscraper and killed via window collisions. It's important to point out that these birds are not sick, they're not diseased, they're not starving. These are healthy birds. These are birds that have worked all summer to get ready for migration through their molts. One could say they're at their prime. These window strikes do not have any selective pressure on these birds. It kills indiscriminately. There's really nothing to be gained with this. And to underscore what she was saying as the way the mechanism works, when birds fly in a flock, they will use their contact calls to keep themselves together. Consider it a game of Marco Polo. So when they are trapped into this light, either the beams or the big light glow around the city or even our towns, they start to frantically call out their flight calls, and this starts to confuse the flock. It becomes more and more hectic. The flight becomes more frantic. They fly into a whirlpool, and this is how they get exhausted. So when they throw off their migration path, the fatalities come directly by the amount of energy that they waste. So they are forced down into surroundings in the area, crashing into windows. I know you have a program coming up on the 11th where you're discussing window strikes. They go hand in hand. So we have 722 species of birds in North America. 76% of those migrate. Here in Connecticut, about 150 either come from Connecticut or migrate through Connecticut. 80% of those migrate at night. We're all pretty shaken up still by that article that was in the journal Science that dates October 2019. We have lost 3 billion birds in North America since 1970. That's 1 in 4 of our birds. Our birds are facing many threats. Some bird species are facing extinction. They're going to just leave a ghost in our memory. So a case study just in New Haven. This is Evans Hall. It's on Whitney Avenue. It features 130,000 square feet of glass facade, an open air courtyard with 6 honey locust trees and multiple design features linked to high frequencies of fatal bird collisions, such as transparent glass walkways and unobstructed reflective windows abutting bird habitat. Soon after it opened, the building quickly became an invisible killer for birds on Yale campus. Starting in April of 2018, a group of Yale faculty, staff, students, and alumni and citizen scientists began monitoring bird collisions at the building using a combination of informal carcass surveys, citizen science observations, and a data collecting partnership between the building's facility staff and the Yale University Peabody Museum of Natural History. It's important to point out the facility staff was involved in this study. Some building staff, they are told to get out there as soon as possible and clean up these birds so they can't be counted, so they could still stay off the radar that their building is actually killing birds. So from April 2018 to April of 22, at least 419 birds were killed and at least 19 birds were injured or stunned due to collisions with the building. These birds represent at least 56 species, including multiple species of conservation concern. A Bicknell thrush was also recorded as a fatality. Point out this thrush is very endemic in this region. It breeds only in the high elevations of New York, New England, and Canada and the Maritimes. It will migrate down to Hispaniola and Jamaica, the large islands. It's losing a lot of its breeding ground and it's losing a lot of its wintering ground. So to think that we have this issue with lighting and glass, that is adding just another threat to this bird that's already threatened. This is how the data collection has been going in this study. As they get more people involved, more volunteers, they are able to collect more. Obviously, the data is out for this year, but anxious to see what that looks like. This is the distribution. There's really no surprise here that May and October are the deadliest months for the birds. Those are the peak migration months. I'm sorry, this is probably a little blurry, but this is showing the species breakdown. Mourning doves, white-winged, white-throated sparrows, juncos, chickadees, a lot of hermit thrushes, a lot of warblers, black poles, black-capped chickadees. So what can we do? Not to sound so negative, just switch off your excess lights from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. during migration periods. And this is during April 1st through May 31st and August 15th through November 15th. And how can you support Lights Out Connecticut? You turn off your exterior decorative lighting, extinguish pot and floodlights, reduce atrium lighting wherever possible, turn off interior lighting, especially on higher stories. This is obviously for office buildings. Substitute task and area lighting for workers staying late, or simply pull the window coverings down. Downshield your exterior light to eliminate horizontal glare. That's also called light trespass, and also light directed upwards. Install motion sensors, which show to be more of a deterrent for criminals than just leaving the floodlights on so you could aid their work. And when you're converting to new lighting, assess the quality and quantity of light needed. Avoid overlighting with newer, brighter technologies. Now, it's estimated we lose 1 billion birds every year on migration because of window strikes and simply being exhausted because of light pollution. It would be great if we could blame all these office buildings, all these skyscrapers, and all this glass, but truth be known, half of this is happening at our homes. 500,000 birds die from home window strikes in the United States. So a few ideas that you can do is cover your windows with tempera paints, or use tape, decals, put up some cords at 4-inch intervals, use shades. The American Bird Conservancy has a lot of ideas on how you can do a lot of these projects at home, and they are really quite effective. Simply put, you just turn your birds into turn your windows into something that the birds can see. Also, other rays of hope. Obviously, this is the Trade Center, but it's been shown that if they shut off the lights for 20 to 30 minutes, the density of the birds in the area that have been surrounded by the beam as they circle it, they start to reorient themselves and move on their way. So that's very helpful to be able to just shut off your lights for a period of time. This great bird killer is McCormick Place, Lakeside Center in Chicago. A new study published this year in June combined decades of surveys with weather records, radar data, and pinpoints the impact of lighted windows on migrating birds. By turning off just half of the lighted windows during spring and fall, the study revealed fatal bird collisions can drop by 60%. That means 400,000 birds are going to will be our fatality, as opposed to 600,000. So to talk about our movement, Lights Out, I really would say it got started at Yale when Vivica Morris, who was a Yale School of the Environment and a Yale undergrad, started to document the window strikes at Evans Hall. No, we were aware of her. Then last fall, Meredith Barges, who was a student at Yale Divinity School, reached out to New Haven Bird Club asking about what's going on for local and state initiatives for Lights Out. And embarrassingly, her email was forwarded to me and I didn't have a good answer. And I knew that something had to be done. So she started working on the Divinity School and they declared their campus Lights Out. We worked, the COA actually made us a formal committee. So we are in our beginning year. We have a website up. Please check that out. There's a lot of great information there. And we're planning to reach out, build coalitions, and help support community science and community initiatives in this regard. So we became one of the few states that actually have a statewide initiative. There's plenty on the city level. We are in close, we work closely with Audubon, Connecticut Audubon, Dark Skies Association, and World Migratory Bird Day. On our steering committee, we have Monocutug's own Robin, there's Meredith Barges, there's Ken Elkins, who is now with Connecticut Audubon, and Vivica Morris. So what will Lights Out Connecticut do? Well, we'll organize. We cannot take on a grassroots effort across the state. You know, we really need people in every town to start something on the local level, start talking to their town councils or selectmen or however you're organized. You know, go to planning and zoning board meetings. Help focus efforts to educate homeowners and business owners and state governments. You know, there was a bill that was introduced last year. We hope to bring it up again. That would limit the lighting on state buildings. We'll share resources. A lot of this is already up on our website. We'll have pamphlets, posters, legislation, and ordinance examples, and we'll host events like this presentation right now. And we will support bird strike monitoring and data collection, and we'll try to lobby where possible. So what can you do? Join up. Please go to the website, take the pledge. It gives us your contact information so you could be on our email list. Brainstorm and think of ways to launch an initiative in your own town. It has been done in some cities already, but each town's going to be different. So you may need to come up with unique approaches and advocate and collect data. I think many of us have been in the bird conservation field for a while now and knows that it's very common for a legislator to simply say, well, there's not enough data, we meet and try to kick the problem down the road. So if we're out there collecting data on these window strikes, they won't be able to use that line. So here's a list of ways to help to organize and advocate. This is put together by an association of librarians. So when you get librarians upset, you know you have to watch out. So in summary, do your homework, know what the issue is, know how the issue applies to your locality, know your local public officials and let them know you, get to know them, contact them personally, be brief and direct and make it personal, give personal anecdotes, mobilize your friends and other citizens, reach out to local media, and be gracious. Now we are in a very trying times politically where it seems like anger and violence rules the day, but we should be soft-powered as we approach this. So one way you could help is by using this website called dBird, which is obviously a spin on eBird. It was put together by the New York chapter of the Audubon Society. So if you find a dead or injured bird, you can make a contribution. They are only web-based. They do not have an app to my knowledge. So simply pull it up. If you, obviously you want to take pictures. And if you know what the species is, go ahead. It's a pull down menu. List the bird species. If you know the sex, go ahead and list it. If you know the age, go ahead and list it. We're not saying that you need to be experts in sexing and aging birds or travel with your Peter Pyle book. Record the details. When it happened, was it dead? Was it injured? The cause of death, etc. And add some notes and drag your images here. Add your name and your email address and hit submit. And that will go into a database that could be used. More formally is the program that is going on at St. Joseph College and at Yale University, where they're relying on citizen science using iNaturalist. Many birders use something different as far as bird identification goes, but other people who are into botany and mushrooms and insects, whatever, iNaturalist is pretty common. These are some steps that could go into more detail if you like. On how to enter this, but there is a project called Connecticut Bird Window Collision. So here's an example of my My iNaturalist homepage. You go to projects, you click on bird window collisions, and just type in Yale where you saw it, and then you could record your sighting. So I want to obviously thanks for the participation tonight. Let me stop sharing my screen. So a few things. If you go to our site, we have an ability to print out brochures that you could pass out that has a lot of information. Some of our posters. So shock your friends. This is a list of birds that actually migrate through Connecticut. And also some pledge forms that you could fill out. There's also some press kits and media kits that you could print out if you want, if you need to approach your legislator. So I want to thank Audubon Connecticut, Connecticut Audubon, and of course the COA and the International Dark Skies. So what are your questions?
Hi, Craig.
You
That was
can,
really interesting.
Hi, Gina.
I have a question, and I was trying to Google it to find out more, but I have lots of friends who run moth lights to attract moths at night. And I know that birds see in UV wavelengths, and the moth lights UV wavelengths. Do you think that that is could be part of the problem?
Yeah, if we have lights on, do they constantly have these on for moths, or they're just trying to collect them for a short period of time?
Some people leave them on all night, and they have a live trap where they trap them, and then they go in the morning and see what's in the trap.
Okay. Doug Ptolemy writes about leaving lights on all night long, and that it does have a way, obviously, of disorienting moths. And now you're taking food away from night jars and bats. So no, I wouldn't recommend it. You know, I'm more of a hands-off type of person when it comes to nature. Just let nature do its thing. I guess for I know some people will go out with a sheet and have it backlit and collect moths that way, but all night long still isn't good. You know, even though they may be doing it in the middle of the summer, but especially during these periods that I've mentioned, during fall migration and spring migration, definitely shut the lights off.
Thanks.
Thanks, Gina. Anyone else?
Beverly, you want to make your point?
Okay, I'm trying to read some of the comments. Okay, Stephanie, you mentioned Philly. Yeah, they've got a very strong movement. Will this program be available after the call? I guess, Dennis, you are recording this.
I am recording it and it should be up tomorrow.
Okay. We wanted to record this, you know, the Lights Out Connecticut Committee. We would like to record it and have that available.
Okay, it'll be on our YouTube channel.
Let's see what else.
My niece has a question. You want to unmute yourself, Sarah, and ask your question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. I was wondering about like those stick-on decals, like privacy screens that you can see Amazon showing. One, does that work? It's more over a total window, and the idea being obviously your neighbors can't see in, but then also you know, it's a larger area. It's not sort of string or whatnot that's taped in different areas. Wondering if that would work. I'm also wondering about higher floor, you know, where you maybe can't reach it with a ladder. Is something on the inside going to be just as effective as a deterrent? And thanks.
Okay, thank you. Great questions. Decals, if it's a large decal, you're obviously covering a lot of area. But if they're smaller decals, this whole thing with the cords that people are putting up when they're 4 inches apart and when they're vertical, that helps the most. And if it's outside, it's even better because if it's inside, it could still reflect. But I know it could be very hard getting up to those windows. And this is obviously an issue during the day. Nighttime with our residents, the birds aren't colliding into our windows. It's during the day. But good question. Here again, 4 inches apart.
2 inches, Craig,
2 inches.
2 inches.
Okay.
Yeah, Stephanie says 2 by 2 is most effective.
Okay. All right. I was just reading a lot of literature where it's saying 4 inches, but the tighter the better.
Yeah, there 2 by 4 is okay. 2 by 2 is better.
Okay, that makes sense.
Any other questions?
Okay, great.
Last
Thank you.
chance.
Thank you, Stephanie.
How do we know when migration is? You know, how can we monitor this? Because it's not going to last forever.
Right. Well, we have the span, the dates of when to shut off your lights. Talking about like September 1st to November 15th, just a general area. Also, you could go on to bird calls, which I showed you a screen of that, and you could see when things are flying. As a bird geek, I think that's very fascinating just to see what the migration is. Means you just got to go out the next morning if it's a big flight night. But just rule of thumb from September to November, and then likewise during the spring, going from April 1st to May 31st. Good question.
Another question for you, Craig. How much of this material that you have is in trifold format? We have boxes that we set out in libraries and town hall and at fairs and in our demonstration where we put trifold brochures.
Okay.
Springtime, we're focusing mainly on nesting type birds, so forth, the shorebirds. And around these other times of migration, we could substitute those nesting bird folders for lights out folders.
Oh, that'll be great. Now we have this poster you could print out, which libraries and bird food stores like to put things like this up, which helps a lot. And we have this one brochure, this is all on our website. So this is trifold. This is the only trifold that we have. There's a lot of it. Yeah, there's a lot of really good information there on the website.
Could we print them out from the website?
Absolutely. A lot of them are in PDF format.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Carl.
Yep.
There's also more information about specific migration totals on birdcast.
Can you ask that again, Dennis?
Birdcast has more information about live migration traffic.
Yes. Yeah,
So I'm looking at, let me share my screen here. That come up?
yeah, it's up.
So based on radar, Birdcast is saying that there have been about 6,400 birds that have gone through Connecticut so far tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, Birdcast is great. It could give you for the entire continent, or it could get very specific to your state. I think you could even get granular enough for a city.
So this is a website that's worth exploring.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Birdcast.info. Any other questions? Michelle?
Dennis, I just have a question about your Urbanscapes nursery, whether you still have some stock left.
We have plenty.
Okay, thank you. So I have to be there by noon on Saturday, right?
Right.
Okay, Sana has asked a very good question. While this is specific to bird migration, isn't it a good idea to reduce lighting year-round for habitat for all birds? Yeah, there's studies showing that birds do better hunting in dark or just using natural light. So if your backyard is flooded, you probably won't get any owl activity because the light could put it away or could put it down. But it's also this amount of light, it isn't good for us either. We are suffering from stress and insomnia. We live in some very highly lighted areas, and some people, they need to go camping just to get into the dark and reset their clocks. So yeah, light in general isn't good. But that's a very good point. Is there anyone else?
Anne?
Hi, I remember seeing that iNaturalist site where the Yale birds were being collected and numbered. And I'm wondering what Yale is doing about it. What you talk about them picking up the birds and trying to hide that, but is there a way that we can communicate with them that we're kind of on to them and we don't like it?
The problem that we're having with Yale, it's a very good question. One of the problems that we're having with Yale is that you could have one dean at one campus, for example, the divinity school, that got on board last fall even, and was very supportive. But then you could have some pushback. But there is an effort campus-wide to start to become more sustainable. When I say sustainable, become more green and environmental friendly. So there is an issue. I think at this point, going into New Haven and using D-Bird, if you find dead birds, is going to help tremendously. We'll get the word out if there's any type of other advocacy that people can use, can help us with. But just to underscore the issue that we have with Yale is that a lot of people over in Westville have an issue with the stadium lighting that Yale has, and you can't talk to the provost because that's not their department. So it's not like there's a university-wide person you could go to and say, can you please shut these lights down? This is the reason why, and that they'll do it across the campus because it's rather fragmented. So it makes our work a little harder. But it has to be done. Just to let you know that we.
Hey, Renee. Very good. I'm just going to leave this Zoom meeting that I'm on because it's pretty much over.
Okay.
Robin.
Not just to keep picking on you. Sorry.
I thought you were finished. I was going to call on Robin.
Okay, go ahead, Robin.
I was just going to say, like, having worked at Yale for 21 years, and I know many people who are in the New Haven Bird Club and COA and Monunketuck, et cetera, all have some Yale connections. I have often thought that a combined letter from all of the birding organizations within the state, strategically deployed to particular deans and faculty, and also the communications department with whom I have connections, could actually be productive. I think you just need to know how to target it. And I also think an op-ed is not a bad idea in the New Haven Independent.
Yeah, we should have.
Yale
an
does,
op-ed.
Yale does capitulate in the face of public pressure oftentimes on these types of things. And so, and I know Paul Bass, who is the editor of the New Haven Independent. So we can band together as bird-friendly organizations within the state in order to apply some pressure in strategic ways, leveraging connections. I know that other people, obviously, across these organizations, including Jim Search, et cetera, Richard Prum, have ties, and they're able to leverage those internally. But public pressure is oftentimes most productive.
Yeah. Thank you, Robin. Yeah, please sign the pledge. We'll get your email. And this way we could get the word out when we are trying to move on something like a letter campaign or a petition. So we could get you on board with that. Also, I was at a P&Z meeting in the town of Hamden, and there's a Quinnipiac University here, and they are trying to build 3 new buildings that are on a riparian margin, and really afraid that they're going to have this bird killing kind of glass. So watch your P&Z, see who's trying to build what, and get on board and make the recommendations for the type of glass that they should be using. We have this type of material on our website. You could also go to the International Dark Skies Association and get more list of the type of glass that should be used in these buildings, and what type of lights that should be used in these developments.
Olivia? No. Craig, you mentioned going the legislation that didn't get through the state legislature last year. I was talking with Rob LaFrance, who is the policy manager for Audubon, Connecticut, the other day, and the legislation is going to be one of Audubon's priorities for the upcoming session. And Rob will be doing a program for us in January about that and other legislative priorities for Audubon. So I urge you to tune into that. There'll be information on the website.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have worked with Rob LaFrance on this. He's a great resource.
Anyone else? All right, then, Craig, I'll thank you for this presentation. And I'll also urge all of the attendees to sign the pledge, get on the email list, and thank you again, Craig.
Great. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Connecticut for all the work you do. Thank you.